Last week, Dr. Petra, because I couldn't be here, I had a sacred disruption. And she launched and shared what our 2022 annual theme is this year. And I love that the staff came up with this. We love that we're getting feedback from all of you as to how much you like this theme, because basically 2022 here at CSLDallas is all about making disruptions sacred, while also invited sacred disruptions to take us on this unexpected, powerful, healing and growing journeys. Like, really, we want to invite it in? I'm sort of over this stuff, some of it, right? But what if we invited it in? And then also it's about realizing that the way it's always been, it can't be. And the way we're going to move forward in creating a world that works for everyone, it can't be this way. And we need to continue to imagine building lives that work in our own lives and for the collective life. And no one's left out of that, right? So that means that we have to reimagine it. Reimagine it, not like, okay, here was the form that it's been, and I'm just going to slightly adjust it. No, like really out of the box, not even like reimagine it all. Reimagine everything in our lives individually, reimagine everything in our lives collectively, because some things that has been happening throughout the years, throughout the thousands of years, still ain't working, so let's start reimagining it. And so starting this week and the rest of January, we're bringing forward thoughts, ideas from the first 4 introductory chapters of the Science of Mind textbook. This is 1938 version, just so you know. So I'm inviting you, I'm gleaming some stuff from the first introductory chapter. So read along, and before next Sunday and the following Sundays, read up with us. So we're starting again with this sacred disruption, right? And we're starting the year with exploring it. And we're exploring it in the hopes that all of us will embrace change, because that is constant. It's one thing we can guarantee is change is occurring all the time, right? And that we can embrace uncertainty, and it can be powerful. And we can use this to set powerful intentions and powerful actions. There have been many people throughout this pandemic since it started have started reimagining their lives. They're actually doing things very differently. You hear about this great resignation and things like that. So when life is disrupted, there is this opportunity to make it sacred and to use it in a way that serves our own individual lives and our collective lives. So can we invite this disruption to be sacred? Well, today what I want to talk about is actually disruption of the sacred. It's a very interesting topic, and I want to start with our entire faith, philosophy, way of life, because it has disrupted the idea of the sacred. Very much so. When New Thought, which is sort of this larger umbrella that started in this country, when New Thought came along, it certainly disrupted the ideas and the teachings of the sacred. It disrupted our thoughts, our views around God, how we hold God, and the way in which the reality of life actually works. So with this first introductory chapter of the Science of Mind textbook, it's called The Thing Itself. But even before I get to that, I want to stay in this idea, or actually I want to give you, especially for you that are brand new, I mean, this might be the first time you've heard the 2 words, new thought. So this may be a new thought to you. You may be new to our community. You may need a refresher on this. Where does this stuff come from New Thought? So like I said, part of New Thought originated in America. We have deep roots, though, in antiquity. So it's new and it's not. It's drawn its knowledge from all sources, the primary lodestone being the Christian faith and, shall I say, philosophy and the teachings of Jesus. Also, it draws from the sources of India, primarily and predominantly Hinduism, right? And the teachings of Hinduism in India is about the unity of all life. Believing in the one God and the only God, the absolute, or the Brahma, as they would say. It also draws from the ancient Hebrews. It draws from ancient Hindus and certain phases of ancient Egypt. So the Egyptians are being drawn from as well. And the Egyptians were the first people to perceive a unitary causality. Cause. So 15,000 years prior to the time of Moses, we also will find the Hermetic doctrines, Hermes. It draws from there as well. And in this teaching, we find a great deal of what Moses taught, because Moses was educated in the Egyptian court and the temples, right? So Hermes was the as above, so below, as beneath, so above, right? And some of us have heard that. So what is true on one plane is true on all. This Hermetic teaching would say, for every visible thing, there is an invisible pattern to which the visible is attached. It also draws from the fact that modern physics is now becoming more metaphysical, and it's drawing from that. It draws from Plotinus, which is a Neoplatonist. And Plotinus said that every organ in the physical body is attached to a cosmic pattern. That pattern is generic, and that the organ is individualized. Okay? You recognizing some of our faith philosophy teachings in this? Because it's drawn from this. And so he says that, Plotinus said that there is a generic pattern, which means this universal pattern that flows in and through all things. And that is what is meant by Christ, or by Buddha, or by illumined, the one sun. It's this generic universal pattern in and through all things. I know you didn't think you were going to get a history lesson this morning, but I'm giving you just a little taste, right? And it's important to understand that when one puts art, science, philosophy, and religion together, right, and seek to find out what makes it tick, then we find out and can start to understand this clockwork of life itself, this spiritual reality, and what's going on. So in summary, it really clearly says that no one system, no one teacher, no one person has given the world what it knows. And this is very significant. And this is what science of mind, which is our individual faith, philosophy, way of life within the New Thought umbrella, takes a stand for. Right? So again, the greatest contributions of the New Thought movement come from Hinduism, Buddhism, the Old Testament, Judaism, the New Testament, the Greeks, and the philosophy of Emerson, who is a really cool dude, because basically he took a compilation of all these things as well. And Ernest Holmes, our founder, just loved Emerson and drew a lot from Emerson too. Now, why am I spending a little bit of time on this, right? Well, because it's important. It's important. It makes a difference when you know the source from which something comes. Where does something come from? Now, I want to give you a side note. If you are like a history buff and you want to know where things come from and this like really excites you and you haven't fallen asleep yet on me and you're excited, then I want to let you know that we have a course coming up later in the year, and it's called From Whence We Came. And you definitely want to get in that course because you will love it. Okay, so that's a side note for those of you that are very interested in what I'm saying. Now, many sources come from the science of mind throughout all the sands of time. So I want you to know that this is not some silly-willy, one-off, off-the-wall cult thing. Okay, I just really want you to know, and I want you to know that, and you already know this if you've been in this community and studying this faith, philosophy, way of life. But the challenge is for many of us, okay, for anyone who's decided to take this up and to put these spiritual principles and practices into use in our life, the challenge is many people in our family and our friends do think we're in some cult, right? But this is why I'm sharing where this stuff is drawn from. So, we have deep and profound roots. And when you look at the depth and the breadth of our roots and how deep they go and how far wide they are spread, man, it's incredible. And I love this. So let me tell you specifically a little bit about Science of Mind. It was founded by Dr. Ernest Holmes a little over 100 years ago, 102 or 3 years now, right? It is part of the New Thought spiritual tradition. It's a positive, practical spirituality. And this is sort of, if you want to just have it in a nutshell, this is my favorite shell to crack open and talk about. I've actually done my best to memorize this, so when people ask me, well, what is Science of Mind? Science of Mind is drawn from the revelations of both the Western and the Eastern religions, the opinions of philosophy, the laws of science, and the practices of psychology as applied to human needs and the aspirations of humanity. Beautiful summary of what it is. It's also a compilation of the great thoughts of the ages, the deep mystical yearnings of the minds and search for God, and the modern approach to a faith which can be demonstrated, right? In this practice and teaching, Science of Mind endeavors to include the whole life. Nothing, no one, no thing is left out. It is a way of life focused on joy, freedom from fear, and justified results. So Science of Mind offers the world what it's been waiting for. It's a faith whereby fear and superstition have been removed. And universal spiritual principles are presented in plain, sometimes, simple, sometimes, and direct ways so that we can each learn to live in the now, right, in the present, and in the knowledge and absolutely trust, keyword trust, that the universe is for us and not against us. Okay, that is foundational. The universe is for us, not against us. So Science of Mind has truly disrupted the idea of this sacred thing that is held so sacred. Disrupted that there's some mythical, abstract being living somewhere above earth, the Heavenly Father, right? And it's ruling and it's judging and it's granting prayers and it's punishing and striking down the sinners. Okay, it has disrupted the idea of that notion. And it's okay if that is something that you still hold. I'm not in judgment about that because it lets go of judgment, fear, superstition, right? But it's definitely disrupted that idea of the sacred. And so in this first introductory chapter, Ernest Holmes calls it the thing itself. Pretty fancy, right? It's like the thing itself. It's the thing itself. And he deliberately uses that term instead of the word God. Part of the reasons why Ernest Holmes uses the term is because we have a lot of preconceived ideas. We've grown up with them. We have all kinds of notions when it comes to the word God. Some people actually feel very harmed, injured, and traumatized by God, right? And the teachings of what God is and how God is in the life of all of us. So he's wanting to get behind, beneath, and around and through these preconceived ideas. And so he starts out with this notion of it's the thing itself, right? And it's a radical notion because in the thing itself, there is no entity. And that's pretty radical. There's no entity God because the thing itself is everything. Just as we've already heard this morning, it's everything. It's this undifferentiated spiritual absolute reality, as well as the created physical world that we can see and enjoy and touch, as well as everything that causes creation to be in place. It's everything. So there's no entity in that. If it's everything, there's no entity. I love this. This is a quote from Ernest Holmes. He says, "There is a universal mind, spirit, intelligence that is the origin of everything. It is first cause. It is God. This universal life and energy finds an outlet in and through all that is energized and through everything that lives. There is one life back of everything that lives. There is one energy back of everything that is energized. And this energy is everything. There is one spirit back of all expression." And that is the meaning of the mystical saying from the New Testament, "In him we live and move and have our being." It's everything, right? So God, and he has at least because one of my beloved colleagues, Dr. Edward Fillion, took the time in the Science Mind textbook, there's at least 188 names for God in that textbook. And so God is this infinite spirit, this limitless conscious life of the universe, this one infinite, indivisible whole. It's not divided. It's not two, it's not three, it's not four, it's one big thing itself, right? And so when we believe and we move from that place and believe that there's two things, or three or four or five or six or 10 million, right? If we move from that place that there is God, the Father in heaven, like this thing, this separate entity outside of me, outside of you, when we move from that place, then that's actually what is causing and creating this deep divide between us, within us, all around us, right? And it's a divide between our higher self and what the truth of reality is, and between us and God. There's like this great divide. That and me, right? Or between spirit and matter, as if they were two entirely different things. And it's one thing, because it's only the thing itself. So everything is contained within the one. It's all one. And so spirit and matter is actually the continuum of the same thing. And this is a key thing to grasp today. It's one continuum. We believe it never began. We believe it never ends. It's this. Although there is forms changing in and out of itself, but it's this one continuum, right? So this really disrupts our idea of maybe what we knew before, that God, Spirit, whatever we choose to call it, the thing itself, and you are separate. And when we actually let go of that idea and we start grappling and holding and doing our best to understand and to know, and when we live from this place that there's only one thing happening and that includes me within it, then what does it do for our lives? When we have this new idea, the spiritual reality can change everything, because it then begins to disrupt this illusion of separation. It disrupts this illusion of duality. It says everything Spirit is, I am. And that's why the master teacher, Jesus, would say, I am that I am. Put a comma after that. I am that, the thing itself. I am. Moses said it, right? Ernest Holmes tells us that, but the God that is in each of us is the same God that is universal. There is no wall of separation, no barrier, no place where one begins and the other leaves off. All is one and one is all. So this totally will begin to disrupt old ideas of judgment, old ideas of punishment, old ideas of I must be worthy to receive God's love. I have to earn God's love. I have to earn the love of the Heavenly Father, whatever. And I was thinking about this, and isn't it true that there have been things in the past where we really believe something so firmly? In fact, when one person wasn't the only one, there was like a lot of people, like so firmly, like would go to the death to say, this is true, that, we can look at this, that we live from that place and that understanding until something else happens, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, maybe I need to get on this new idea train, this new thought, right? Let's think of a few. I'm sure you're going to have some. Put it in the chat for those of you online, if you can come up with one or two. The world is flat. The world is flat. The world is flat. The world is flat. Do you know the world is flat? Right? That's one. We're still working on this one a whole lot. We are superior and have dominion over all other sentient beings. Well, we've been holding that for so long. Look where it's gotten us. We have dominion over all other sentient beings, and we are superior. Held the idea for so long, there is only one galaxy in the universe. There's trillions of galaxies in the universe, and I think they're about to prove, I don't know yet, that it's a multiverse instead of a universe, right? Don't know, but held on to the idea of there's one galaxy. Now, there's one other thing that you may not know, and I love that there's some young folks in the sanctuary, because when they get to biology, I want them to teach the teacher something new, okay? So there's one thing that we've held on to for a while, and that is the heart, the human heart, right? Boop, 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 boop. Who doesn't have one? Raise your hand. Okay, just checking. So, we have this human heart, and it's this large muscle. That's what we believe. That's what we've been told. It's this large muscle, right? And it's the hardest working muscle in the body. And so, we hear things like it's about the size of our fist. Okay, so my heart is about this big, right? In my body, and it's about the size of my fist. And you get to see all kinds of models of hearts and the two chambers and, the aorta and all this good stuff. Well, I actually want to bring you a new thought about the heart. All right? I want you to understand, this is my heart. This is a wet rag, just so you know. That's what it really is, but I'm going to use this. That this is actually our heart. What are y'all thinking? Okay. So this heart in our body is actually one continuum, just like life itself. It's recently been discovered that it's not a mass of muscle, but it's called a helicoil. I'm going to put it up but don't show the slide yet, Ryan. Stay with me. It's a helicoidal myocardial band. And here's what it does. It spirals. Okay, so I'm going to spiral this as much as I can. It spirals upon itself. So imagine that it's spiraling upon itself, and it keeps spiraling, right? And it spirals so much upon itself that it creates a unique shape, and we've been believing that they're separate chambers. That's my best little representation of what we've known as a heart. But that's not our heart. It's actually one continuum. So check it out. I want you to check it out on YouTube. There's a guy that does this, which is really cool. That's where I got it from. There's another, if you're up for it and you're okay with human anatomy, there's an actual heart where this guy totally proves and brings it out to this point, right? So look up helicoil heart. Just do that. Helicoidal heart. It's amazing. So we can have a new thought. We can have a new understanding, and to really know how something works and the way life works. And when we do, and we have this clear understanding that God is life, but not some life. It's all life. God is action. Not some action. It's all action, right? God is power. Not some power, but all power. God is presence. Not some presence, but all presence. God is spirit, filling all space, seen and unseen. And the truth is that we are each an individualized God. Now, I'm not saying we're the thing itself, but we're an individualized thing itself, right? And this is quite a claim to make. We are, another way to put it, and Ernest Holmes puts this way, and I just found this, I'd never heard this before. We are individual infinities. We are individualized infinities. So we too are the invisible intelligence, this divinity in action. We are this power, this presence. We're not all of it, but everything that we are individualized, we are all of that. There's nothing in us that isn't that thing itself, right? So we are sacred. And I hope that some of this has sort of like disrupted you a little bit in this sacred disruption. So let's disrupt any idea that there's separation anywhere, because there isn't, in the inner spaces of the universe, that there's separation anywhere on this planet, that there's separation anywhere in this country, that there's separation anywhere in any community that we're engaged with and involved with, in our families, and that there's any separation within our own selves. We are one continuum, one big continuum of the thing itself. I'm going to end with a reading from the Science Mind textbook in the Thing Itself chapter. And this enables us to know that we can continue to know our relationship to the universal mind, the oversoul, or the eternal spirit, which we call God. And life reveals itself to whoever is receptive to it. As you take up perhaps this new thought, life will reveal itself that there is no separation, that there is only one thing, happening all the time. That we are living in a spiritual universe, which includes the material or physical universe. It has been a conclusion of the deepest thinkers of every age. That this spiritual universe must be one of pure intelligence and perfect life, dominated by love, by reason, and by the power to create, seems an inevitable conclusion. He says there is a power in the universe that honors our faith in it. There is a law in the universe which exacts the utmost farthing. We all wish to feel that the power behind everything is good, as well as creative and eternal and changeless intelligence, in which we live and move and have our being. And intuitively, we sense that every one of us in our own native state is some part or manifestation of this eternal principle, and that the entire problem of limitation, evil, suffering, and uncertainty is not God-ordained, but is the result of ignorance. We find ourselves torn by confusion, by conflict, by affirmation and denial, by emotion, congested by fear, congealed by pride. We are afraid that the universe in which we live, suspicious of people around us, uncertain of the salvation of our own souls, all these things negatively react and cause physical disorders, not only in our own body, but in the whole body of humanity. And there's some parts that aren't healthy. We must learn to trust the universe. We shall be happy and prosperous and well when we do. Because in conclusion, God is always God. It always is. It's the thing itself. There's nothing else outside of it. And so we are this individualized expression of the thing itself, having an opportunity to play in this universal language and creativity and art and beauty and sight and song. Because there's only one thing happening, and that means us too, right here and right now. So what I know for each of us moving forward, it's like the world was flat and then it's really round. We really get that there is no separation. There is no division within us, within ourselves, within this world, and that we are the power, the presence. We are the creativity. We are the abundance. We are made manifest because there's not two things going on. There's only one, and it is us in action, power, and presence. And so it is.